And joining me now to discuss his life and legacy even further is Gemma Swad, friend of the program with Variety. Gem, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. We wanted to get this segment in with such an incredible American life. Actor, singer, and then later activist. Really the consummate professional, consummate performer as well. How is he being remembered today?
I think people are going out of their way to remember him as an activist because he was an enormously talented actor, an enormously talented singer, one of the most successful singers of his era. But he kind of put it all aside and focused on activism. Obviously, as one of the first Black actors and, you know, to a degree, entertainers to be embraced on a scale like that, an almost Elvis Presley scale level of fame, race touched everything he did, and he dedicated his life to making things better for people of color.
Yeah, and a lot of times throughout the day here in the remembrances, we have seen photos of Belafonte with his then friend, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who he worked alongside. And, you know, they formed an incredible bond, an incredible friendship. At the peak of Belafonte's singing career, he was soon producing benefit concerts for the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. And so he and King really worked in tandem back in the 60s, both preacher and yet entertainer, working side by side.
Very much so. And something you don't hear about quite as often is how much money Harry Belafonte gave to bail people out of prison, to look after Martin Luther King's family after his death. He had taken out an insurance, a life insurance policy for him. But, you know, in terms of the bigger picture, the two of them changed the world. And earlier today, my editor-in-chief, Cynthia Littleton, she managed to get Rita Moreno on the phone. And my first reaction was I didn't quite understand what the connection was. But she was one of the Hollywood people, one of the Hollywood movie stars that Harry Belafonte convinced to come to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington in 1963. This was the famous one where Bob Dylan and Joan Baez sang the "We Shall Overcome" moment. It was her, Marlon Brando, James Garner, several others chartered a plane to Washington, D.C. for this. And it's easy to forget now what that kind of thing could mean. Apparently, several of the actors were concerned that it was going to end their careers. But they decided what they were doing was important. And of course, it didn't end their careers. But that just goes to that one example. He brought Hollywood to the March on Washington. And you know, okay, you can be like, okay, movie stars, big deal. That's not, you know, how important is that in the scheme of things? When it comes to normalizing what they were trying to put across, and in a bigger context, what Harry Belafonte himself did, entertainers can make important causes more palatable to the public. They'd say, oh, gee, well, if Harry Belafonte says it's okay, maybe it's all right. I like him, you know? So the scale of what he did in those terms is just immeasurable.
Yeah, you know, Jim, I'm quoting here from the article the Associated Press put out today. He said he lived out his hero, Paul Robeson's decree that artists are, quote, gatekeepers of truth. Do we have anyone like that in today's culture, zeitgeist, who can even walk in Belafonte's shoes, do you think? Anyone come to mind?
Well, that is a very, very tall, you know,
sure.
Those are insanely big shoes to fill. There are a lot of very important, well-intended, very effective performers out there right now. Kendrick Lamar is one who comes to mind. You know, he's someone who's very selfless in a lot of ways, and yet he doesn't shy away from telling the truth. You know, Kendrick Lamar's latest album, it doesn't hit things head on. You know, a lot of the artists these days are more either coded or
subtle.
subtle and symbolic
Yeah.
in what they're saying about race and what they're saying about, about society.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people out there. Another Harry Belafonte, that I'm not sure about.
Sure. You cover music in the industry so closely. I want to talk about Harry Belafonte, the musician, the artist. His Calypso, it was released in 1955. It became the first officially certified million-selling album by a solo performer. And it kind of started this national infatuation, obsession, whatever you want to call it, with Caribbean rhythms, Caribbean music. He was oftentimes referred to as the King of Calypso. What's his musical legacy going to be?
Well, one of the article we actually published today in Variety, I didn't write it, but I edited it. We just sort of set aside the Banana Boat song and Jamaica and all those, the songs that he's best known for, because they kind of typecast him, and it feels like something that he embraced and he knew that he had brought him to fame, but really wanted to move on from. And he was much more of a folk singer, as far as I would see it. Calypso was a big part of what he did, and his mother was Jamaican. He lived in Jamaica for several years when he was a kid, but it's way too easy to pigeonhole him as a musician and as a singer by those things. They're what he's best known for, yes, but there's lots and lots more music to him. And the last album he made, I think it was in 1988, it had electronic rhythms. It had a song about apartheid in South Africa, so he walked it like he talked it every step of the way. And, it is interesting to think what his career might have become if he had been able to focus more on being a musician than the civil rights and social activism that he felt he needed to do and felt was more important and was more important.
Yeah. I want to just put up this tweet. Former President Barack Obama posted this on Twitter today, saying Harry Belafonte was a barrier-breaking legend who used his platform to lift others up. He lived a good life, transforming the arts while also standing up for civil rights, and he did it all with his signature smile and style. Michelle and I send our love to his wife, kids, and fans. So, Jem, he lived a long life, 96 years, and he's somewhat been out of the public eye. That photo taken during the Obama administration. And so people knew this was on the horizon. They knew this was coming. He was getting up there in age, but so many coming out to remember him, especially in his later years. That's why we have video of him there. I want to put that up yet again. And so many influences that he had as well. You can see there. Final thoughts, Jem?
Well, it's funny, 96 is hard to be mad at. If any of us make it to 96, that is an accomplishment. The fact that he lived the life that he did, that was a lot of stress he put on himself, and others put on him as well, and a lot of attention and a lot of giving of himself. And it just shows what an incredible human being he was. And I will say, the group U2 gave a special concert at the Apollo in Harlem. Harry Belafonte was born in Harlem and lived there for most of his life. They gave a special concert there in 2018. I was at that show, and he was 91 years old, I think. And there he was up in the balcony with little Steven and a bunch of other, he was like in the famous person's part of the balcony, but he was out at a show and he's 90 years old. And I mean, it really warmed my heart that he was just, hey, sure, I'll go. Let's have a good time, at that age. I mean, we should all be so lucky, and we should all hope to make a fraction of a difference in the world that he did.
No, that's so important. Final words there from Jem with Variety. We appreciate your insight, your perspective, your experience as we remember this really incredible life. And Jem, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to take just a quick commercial break. A lot more stories left on this Tuesday where that came from. We'll be back in just a moment.